What's good with you?
I'm trying to get on your level, bro. I've been seeing these pictures on Facebook. You're looking all jacked and tan.
Looking all jacked. I'm getting all tan. 75 hard is complete, but I've lost my guardrails.
You lost your guardrails.
Lost my guardrails. I'm already off the wagon, man. Eating Crumbles cookies
I
and
saw that.
had a little bit of wine last night. So what do I got to do?
You got to get back on the guardrails, brother.
Back on the guardrails. So 75 hard phase one starting next Monday. I'll have a little fun for the Super Bowl and I got to get back on it.
Okay,
Otherwise, I'm going to lose all my gains.
fair enough, dude.
Isn't
You're
that
looking,
crazy?
dude. Your pictures look great. I'm gonna be honest. I've been watching on the couch while you've been doing your 75 hard. I'm gonna do like 75 medium, 75 medium.
It's all or nothing for me. It's just that's why I'm an addict. That's the good and bad thing of addicts. It's all or nothing, right? And we
Yeah,
can't have anything in between. Like I cannot do anything in between, right?
yeah, for
It
sure.
was just like before I was committed in marriage, it was like all these women or nothing, right? I couldn't do anything else until I found the right woman. It's my
Yeah,
way. Same with the diet. It was the same with cocaine. It was the same with alcohol. It is just all or nothing for me. Can you guys relate to that
one
as
thousand percent.
addicts?
Yeah.
Former, I always say we are addicts forever. We got to watch every day that we don't go back to our vices, right? So this is episode 41, Third Chance Foundation. We got our friend Kyle on, excited to share his story. He's got just a wild story of wreckage to redemption, we called this. But I wanted to put a new little twist on this, Drago, because we struggled with this last week, right? So we
Yeah.
are at episode 41, right?
Yeah.
Um, who is our favorite professional athletes with the number 41?
The way what I pulled up, Dominique Wilkins and Tom Seaver.
Oh, Dominique wasn't on mine. I like
No?
Tom Seaver.
Tom
You
Seaver.
forgot you forgot Dirk Nowitzki.
Oh, come on.
How can you forget Dirk Nowitzki?
Because I'm a chubby, small white dude. I don't play basketball.
Yeah.
Glenn Rice.
Glenn, who's Glenn Rice? Who's
Glenn
that? Former
Rice.
Glenn
Glenn
Rice.
Rice played for
Yeah.
Michigan. Lights out
Oh,
shooter. The
lights
best
out
shooter
shooter.
before Steph Curry, in my humble opinion, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wes Unseld.
Who is that?
You don't know the king of rebound, most dominant double-double man ever.
Dude, I know Lake Show. I can tell you about the Lakers. Magic Johnson.
Alvin Kamara.
Oh, okay.
You can get
Running
on
back
board
for
with
the
that.
for the Saints.
Victor Hedman. You know
I don't know
Victor
who that.
Hedman?
I
Hockey
don't.
player. You're not into hockey, are you?
No.
You got the Vegas Knights, but you're not into hockey. The best hockey
Yeah,
team in the
bro. The
NHL,
Vegas
arguably.
Knights have this city on fire, man. I'm just not a hockey guy.
They're always good. James Worthy,
Okay, James Worthy with the Lakers.
but I have to go with Brian Piccolo. You know Brian Piccolo?
Brian Piccolo, your Chicago Bears, baby.
Chicago Bears. We got your
That's a
coach.
hey,
I'm sorry
great
you got
movie,
beat
great
Pete
movie
Carroll.
from the '80s, right? Brian Piccolo
Oh,
story.
Brian Song.
Oh, Brian Song, yeah.
If you want to make a grown man cry, I cannot watch that movie without crying. It is like the ultimate bro movie, isn't it?
Uh, yeah, hey, Kyle, you'll find out. Chad's like super Chicago guy. Chicago Cubs,
Just
Chicago
die hard.
Bears. Yeah,
Love me some Chicago. That's where all my troubles are at. Well, I wanted to start something a little different, and we'll let Kyle get in our story, right? I was thinking about this today, last night, and a little bit today as I was thinking about getting ready for this podcast, right? So my story, Kyle, is I had a successful mortgage brokerage. Um, Always was in and out of doing drugs and selling drugs. So I was a baseball player, got done in college. I've always had to have like tight discipline guardrails in my life because when I go off the tracks, I go far, far off. So I got to keep like a super disciplined approach. 75 hard is a fitness program. It's like if I'm not on it, then I weigh 222 pounds like I did. Now I weigh about 184 I weighed in at this week, right? So I went from
Nice.
222 to 184. So I can be super disciplined structured. But it was the same way with my addictions, right? When I was in season and I had a reason, a goal, a vision to work towards, great student, great kid, good athlete, right? Soon as I was off a season, fights, selling drugs, doing drugs, stealing car stereos, just doing terrible things, right? So this kind of happened my whole life, right? And then I found the mortgage business, got in the mortgage business, always did well there, but I always had to like have this outside need, right? So,
Like extreme outside guardrails. Like, is that what you're talking about, right? It's got to be to the extreme.
gotta be super tight.
Yeah.
I got to live a tight life, right? Like my schedule has to be packed. Otherwise, I go a little crazy and I do something um, that is not for the overall health and benefit of our society, right? So I've had to learn to like keep it super tight with doing good. Otherwise, I go way off the guardrails, right? So in 2008, lost my mortgage business, had a partner that embezzled 190 grand from me, had a
Jeez.
girl that forged my name on credit card applications that was living with me to fund another dude's lifestyle that she was cheating on me with. So I turned around, I had $330,000 of debt, right? So I was ashamed, embarrassed. I was self-medicating, going out and blowing more money by partying, just thinking I could network my way at bottle service and nightclubs out of it, right?
Yeah.
And man, it just got really empty. I was heavily drinking, heavily using cocaine, like we shared before. And it just all came crashing down as my dad's passing 8-year anniversary on January 18th. And I tried to take my life that night, right? And that my drug of choice was cocaine. So I got into NA, 14 years clean and sober, coming up on 15 years.
Let's
And
go.
yeah, just
Awesome.
you know, I bounced out of it quickly. I got into NA, got the tools, used the tools, and I got clean quickly. Probably about 8 months of uh, of of meetings, and then I stopped, and I never looked back. But I tell you that all this because I was asking myself today, would you do it all over again? Would I change anything? I wouldn't. I'd go through it all again just to be able to help and have the stories that I've had since Drago and I have started this, just
Yeah,
to
because
be able to talk to people. I have had two people tell me this past about, I think it's been about probably 4 months, that they didn't take their life because of their conversations with me and my vulnerability about the time that I took mine, right? But I wouldn't have had the courage to talk about it, or obviously I wouldn't ever went through it, so I wouldn't have this stage that I'm talking on about it, right? So
yeah,
yes, all that pain sucked. It's all my, all my scars are healed over. All my past issues are gone. I got a great family. I love Christ. Took Christ back in my life. Took my beautiful wife Kristen back. But I wouldn't change it. I would go through it all again to be able to help the people that we are now. To
yeah, bro.
be
That was
able
your
to.
journey to get to now. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
I mean, to be fair, like when I do it over again, oh shit, I mean, I was on the verge of
So I was
killing
just going to
myself, bro.
ask you,
Like, yeah, I
would you
almost
do it
died.
over?
So,
And
like,
hold on a second. Hold on. I don't want Kyle to answer because I want Kyle to answer that question at our end. Would you
got it.
go through it all over again? Right.
All
So
right.
I would. How about you, Drago?
Oh man, that's a tough question for me because you know, obviously I'm reworking the steps right now. I still got a lot of regret with that and working through that. I don't know. I find a lot of joy in being able to help people get a second chance, a third chance at life, and be able to share our story. I mean, just doing this podcast. I mean, we just like me and Chad connected one day, and we're like, dude, you contacted me. I didn't even really know you, and you're like, hey man, I'm thinking about maybe starting a podcast, and I like what you talking about. I was like, you talking to me? Okay, cool. So just within this last year, like we've helped countless people. We've shared countless people's stories. And you know, yes, definitely a blessing and super grateful, but like just I don't know, man. You know,
What's that? Sorry, you broke up there.
I said maybe not so much drugs.
No.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to be clear for everyone listening, then we'll let Kyle get into his journey. You had a wife and kids that your addiction hurt, right? And you almost
Yeah.
lost. I didn't have
Yeah.
any of that. I was single. Luckily, my wife came into my life right when I needed her, right?
Yeah.
It's funny, my mother-in-law always talks about um, she prayed for someone to enter into her daughter's life to change her path, right? And I was praying the same thing. So those prayers met, right? Kristen came into my life, and the guy that she was with before that OD'd and died on drugs,
Okay.
right? So it's like, I was coming awful. I'm not sure she was like, God works in weird ways, because I don't know if at that point I was who she was praying for, but I think God put her in my life at that time because he knew who I was going to turn into,
Yeah,
right?
that's awesome, bro.
So, you would not. Your answer is no?
No.
Cool. Kyle, don't answer that now, but I want to ask you at the end. So,
All right.
man, just go into your story. It's a gnarly one. I loved what you were sharing before we got on. So just share the same with our listeners.
Cool. Yeah. My name's Kyle. I'm an alcoholic, and my story. I don't know. Everybody's story is unique. I grew up in a normal family. My parents are still married. Um, I was never beaten or abused or diddled by a priest. I was, encouraged to do well in school, play sports, go to college, and, grew up in the church. So yeah, I just had kind of I guess you'd say just a normal lower middle class upbringing.
Yeah.
And I guess
I think that's so important, just really quick, because that's all three of our stories, really, right? Like none
Yeah.
of us had any of that. I was the same type of upbringing as you, lower middle class. I was provided for, I was protected. Looking back, there was no love shared in my house, and I was always looking for that. But besides that, like my parents gave me a great upbringing. I know Drago still has spectacular parents, right? Very
Yeah.
supportive of him. So just because you provide a good household as a parent doesn't mean your kids aren't at risk of
Right.
alcoholism, cocaine addiction, opioid addiction. It is out there no matter how well you raise your kids.
Yeah, yeah. No, my sobriety date's June 9th, 2016. So I'm almost at 8.5 years. And,
Let's
in
go.
those, yeah, thanks. Thanks. So,
That's awesome.
what I'm sure you all have kind of come to realize over your stretches of sobriety is that this disease doesn't discriminate. You come from the worst upbringing or the best upbringing, it doesn't really matter. If
Amen.
you got the ism, it's going to get you eventually. So
The isms.
the isms.
The isms.
So, for me, my partying and beginning into drinking didn't really take place till my junior year in high school. My sister was 2 years older than me, so she was always kind of the watchful eye at school. And as soon as she left for college is when, I started running amok. And my junior year was a rough one. I certainly put a lot of gray hairs on my mom's head. I got suspended twice for various reasons, and
Were
crashed
you in
cars.
sports at this time? Were sports still a part of your life?
Yeah, my baseball career kind of ended junior year I ended up going snowboarding and separating my collarbone on my pitching arm, and at that point I just never really got back into it. I was in theater arts. I'm one of those weird thespian guys that always hide in the corner by the bandos, but so no, after that I just kind of went all in on theater, and had a hell of a good time. And it's actually what I went to college for. So yeah, basically fast forward, I did what we all did. We'd go out on the Friday night, Saturday night parties, drinking too much, trying to get some pussy. And, it never worked for me. I'd always get way too drunk and wind up in a bathtub throwing up or something. So
Like blackout drunk, like you get to like maybe like 11 o'clock and then you you just like wake up the next morning.
In the beginning, I wasn't blacking out too much, but I would just get super fucked up. I remember the first time I drank, right? I was a freshman, and for some reason, this senior in high school, Beavers wanted to take me to party. And so I ended up getting so drunk, they duct taped me to one of those like plastic chairs that you put out on your patio. And I ended up finding my way into Cisco's courtyard, and I was just laying on the bricks, throwing up into the planters. Like that was my first experience really like getting after it. And so, and it's just a reflection of how most my nights drinking turned out. So I never got alcohol poisoning, and I think that's because I'd always start throwing up, puking, and rallying. So, but yeah, as I was saying earlier, you know, I ended up getting dropped off at the dorms at Cal State Long Beach for my college career. And that's where my drinking really took off, because there was no more watchful eye. I was the man of my own destiny. And so that was going to involve drinking and smoking cigarettes and chasing women and doing drugs whenever I could. You know, like I said, I had a theater arts degree. So it's
What
like,
was the drug of choice?
for me, it was alcohol for sure, number one, but it always led to, you know, cocaine or shrooms or, you know, weed is a drug, but you know, back in the day you wouldn't consider it one. But no, fortunately I never got into, you know, heroin or meth, you know. And after the 8.5 years of being sober, those guys, they just have a fucking rough time getting sober and staying sober.
Yeah.
The detox is horrible, right?
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
is with
But that- but
like it
like,
is with opioids.
I was gonna say, like, it's like it like gets in your DNA, dude. Like it just never goes away.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, so yeah, I mean, starting freshman year, it's like that's when I literally drank every day. I think we'd take Sundays off and just smoke weed or something stupid. But so that happened. And then on a winter break freshman year, coming home a week before I turned 21, I landed my first DUI. So the Vegas trip and all the 21st birthday thing went out the window. And so yeah, so without a license, I went back to school, and you know, I thought it'd be a good idea to rush a fraternity. So I became an SAE in the fall of 07, and that truly is kind of what catapulted my disease. You know, because I couldn't drive, I was worthless to the active, so they just would black me out for fun. So yeah, I mean, as we learn in the program, you know, wherever we go, there we are. And so, you know, I ended up graduating college in 2011. The recession hit 08, and so I was kind of halfway through it and had no real desire or rush to get out of college, with not a lot of jobs waiting for anybody. So I just went to like 13 units a semester and just milked it, had a hell of a good time. I was working in Huntington Beach at the pier underneath Duke's. It was called Sandy's. It used to be, I think it was Chamayo.
Chamayo, yeah.
Yeah.
But ended up having a good time there in Huntington, and, you know, really raging because you could just ride your bike. And eventually I got fired from that job for being a drunk. I'd previously been dumped by 2 women for being a drunk. So I decided to move up to Mammoth Lakes and be a ski bum, and I was going to leave it all behind. But I think it was probably like within 2 or 3 days, I had a 30 rack in the trunk, and that's where it always stayed, because it was like a natural fridge. And, you know, inevitably I just, you know, became a drunk in the mountains rather than a drunk at the beach. And, you know, met a gal, and I followed her back to San Diego after 2 seasons up there. And, you know, a couple months after being in San Diego, I got dumped by her for being a drunk. And I got fired from a job. I opened the Water Grill down there on J Street by Petco, and opened that restaurant, and got fired for showing up hammered. I worked the morning shift, and so I crushed a Gatorade and vodka, and it had a nice little buzz and had a break. So I said, that works so well, let's have another. And it didn't go so well, you know.
Did you ever at this time, like when you were back and back, like losing relationships, and then the way you were drinking, like did there ever come a point where you were like, oh shit, man, like this is a problem, and then you never like dealt with it, or you just kept rolling?
It was, well, I guess here's the deal is, after I finally got dumped by the last one, Becca, the one I met in Mammoth and went down to San Diego with, that's what kind of shook me some. That's where I was going to quit drinking. I even got a book called Almost Alcoholic and was reading that. And so I quit drinking at that point for, I think it was 90 days. Um, and I was going to quit drinking and get her back and show you that wasn't the deal. But, I ended up going with some buddies to Los Gaviotos there in Baja, Mexico. And so I only took cocaine because, it was the drinking that was the problem. And, so I could just never see, how much addiction in whatever form it was had its grips on me. I wasn't comfortable with just rolling through life normal. It always had to be something extra.
Total addict. Like, hey, alcohol's a problem, but I think cocaine's going to be okay. I'll get through with that.
Right.
Yeah, but where we come from, Chad, like we're always, it's like a good time. It's just that's what we do. We're having a good time. We're down in Mexico. We're in Huntington. We're partying. We're social. So like, it's just one of those things. Like for me, like I just did it, and then like and then like 10 years in, I'm like, oh, I got a problem, right? But it just kept rolling with it.
Yeah.
Lose more shit. Lose more relationships. Don't worry, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's all good. Yeah, it was that woman's problem, not mine.
Yeah.
So,
Gaslight. What they call gas lamping, gaslight. I gaslight the shit out
Gaslight.
of you. You're crazy. You're dumping me. You're crazy.
Yeah. What are you talking about? It was only 3 beers. They were tall boys, and they were like double IPAs, but whatever. But no, I mean, it was one of those things where, golfing's awesome, but if we're crushing beers, it's this much better.
Oh yeah.
So that's how it was. It was, what are we going to do? What are we going to get into to make it that much better? Right. And, as we learn, once I start, I can't stop. And so once I get going, I'm going to drink it till the lights go off, or I'm going to blow those lines till the bag's gone, and probably call AF again and get some more. So, yeah, I ended up putting a kind of as we say, a plug in the jug for 90. And, on day 90, when it was time to start drinking again, I got invited to her son's 4th birthday party. And I was only going to drink 1 beer. That's the rule I put down. I was going to hold to it. So I bought a 32 ounce of Shipwreck double IPA, and I was just going to have that one big ass beer. And I mean, that night I did, and I didn't quite get a buzz. So I crushed 2 Bud Lights. And inevitably, in a week, I was back to just, crushing a 5th of vodka or taking down a 12-pack of IPAs, and just, the insanity continued. And so,
what was it for you? Like for me too, I can't do too much, because then if I do too much, I'm an alcoholic. But I was just trying to get that little that little uplift, right? And then once you got that uplift, I'm all systems go.
Right. I'm trying to, in the way that I first tried to manage my alcoholism, is I quit drinking hard alcohol because I would always black out. And so I switched to just beer. And, I was just crushing Keystones and Natties up in the mountains. But when I got to San Diego, craft beer capital, that's where I started just crushing a bunch of IPAs. Not necessarily because I love that hoppy ass taste, but it was going to get me where I wanted the quickest.
Yeah.
So, But yeah, I mean, at the end of my run, I was living in a Craigslist room for rent in Lemon Grove, which, if anyone's familiar with San Diego, is the hood. And, I was just.
So how did you go from where you were at to that situation? Connect those dots.
From where I was at, where I am now?
No, to you. So you're up in the mountains, right? And you're kind of starting to realize you have this problem. You're kind of going back and forth. It sounds like you realized you had a problem. You said, hey, I'm going to chill out for 90 days, right?
Right.
And then you slowly start to introduce, because we're always negotiating with ourselves as addicts, right?
Right.
It's always, if you really break it down, it's always a game you play with yourself, right?
For sure.
When I started, at first it was cocaine, just to go out and party, right? And it could only be on a Thursday or Friday night. I wouldn't even do it on Saturday because I'd feel like crap on Sunday, and then not be in performance, right, at work, because I was always a performer at work. And then it turned into, I started negotiating with myself. Oh, the Saturday's okay. Now I'm so good at this that the Saturday's not going to be a problem, right? And then that turned into Sunday, and then that turned into doing it at work, right? And then that was like, hey, I can work longer when I'm high, right? This is a
Right.
good thing, right? And hey, how much coke can I do before I make all these phone calls, right? And how good can I be on these phone calls? Was really like, how impaired could I not sound and push the limits?
Yeah.
Is
Right.
really the game I was playing with myself.
Right. So yeah, I left the mountains to follow the gal who dumped me that gave me kind of my first, I guess, epiphany that maybe I do have a problem.
Mhm.
And I was going to show her. And as I just said, my attempt to kind of gently come back and drink like a gentleman failed within a week. And
Gotcha.
so, yeah, I was in that room for rent. I was working a dead end job, if you will, because I got fired from Water Grill for being a drunk. So I was full time trying to attempt to sell life insurance policies with WFG. And I wonder why I didn't sell any, because probably nobody wanted to trust me with
You're like,
money.
that dude's about to die, bro. Why am I gonna get life insurance from that
Yeah,
dude?
this guy, you know what I mean? And so, I had 3 maxed out credit cards. I had nothing really going for me. I had like 3 different car accidents leading up until my second DUI where I didn't get popped by the law, but
So
you
this
know,
is when the wreckage starts,
oh
right?
yeah, this is where I'm starting to go, you gotta reel it in, dude. You gotta stop. Cause I know what the DUI looks like and I know what the second one I think is gonna look like. And it's like the end of my life for at least a year. And so I'm desperately trying to like curb it, but I can't, where you're making those deals with yourself where it's like, all right, you're not gonna drink today. And you get to about lunch and you go, well, you at least made it to lunch. Okay, you can go have a
Yeah.
couple. And then
Right. The self-negotiation, right?
always,
It's hard.
always. So, so yeah, where it all came to an end was, and I was telling you before, but, my mom had basically tried to get me started up going back to church again, that it might be good for me. And I had turned my
Did
back
she
on,
do that because she knew you were having alcohol problems?
yeah,
Yeah, so she
the
tried to
writing
point
was
you to
on
the Lord.
the writing was on the wall for them for years.
Was it? Yeah. Okay.
And so, I turned my back on God when I went to college because I was like, it's either be hot or cold, but if you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out. And I knew I was going to be wicked lukewarm because I was trying to experience everything life had to offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like I was saying, I kind of started attending this church. It was called the Rock in Point Loma, and I was too hungover that Sunday to get there, so I tuned in online, and there happened to be a guest pastor from near my hometown, which was Indio, but the pastor they said was from Palm Desert, California, and so tuned in. Pastor Obed had this fire message, and at the end, he encouraged everybody to kind of come down and get involved in the church. And as an alcoholic, I had every excuse in the book to not get there, and instead called my buddy Kevin, who I was attempting to sling insurance with, and he invited me to this rock concert out in Chula Vista, 91 X Fest, and so I agreed. I tried to get a ride, but I couldn't, so I thought I'd drive there and figure it out. And so, of course, I walked to the local liquor store and bought a 12er of Lagunitas IPAs and crushed them all, and then hopped in the car and met up with them, and proceeded to drink a bunch of rum and cokes and blow some lines, and smoke some weed, and then we went into the concert that I barely remember. And
this was all before the concert. This was before
this was
walking in.
before we even walked
Got
in. Yeah. And then credit card statements when I finally got out of jail, and I'll tell you how that happened, but suggested I probably had bought like 3 or 4 tall boys at the concert. And so I guess I convinced everybody I could drive, and I ended up retracing it. It's like I was driving home. I made all the correct turns, but I was headed the wrong direction. And, it's just kind of a symbol of my life, going in the wrong direction. And I was one exit from making it to the Mexico border. And I came to out of my blackout, slamming on my brakes, going into a dead end road. And, that's where my journey ended, at a dead end road. I was trying to take my bumper back on, and the cops gave me the knock, and the rest is history. Officer Steinbeck locked me up, man. And I told that guy he was going to ruin my life, but he was an angel from God, because he saved me for sure. And so, locked in San Diego County, I learned about Bitcoin for the first time there, and you could buy drugs and hookers and weapons and assassins. And I'm like, I couldn't understand what the heck this Bitcoin was. But anyways, I got the rules: walk around the tables, don't share food with these people. And I'm going, I don't belong here, dude. I am like going to get fucking killed. And so, fortunately, I got bailed out. And in order to get bailed out, I had to move back home to live with my folks and go to rehab. And so, sitting in that jail cell, it was where I'm making that deal with myself, going, you can't ever drink again. This was it, dude. You finally did it. And so, here, and I had to move home and go to rehab. I got fucked up that night, and and my parents moved me home, and that was Monday morning. I got out, and Friday morning I checked into ABC Recovery in Indio, California, and that's where my journey began. And it was I came into rehab on a couple God shot moments, and so Saturday was visitation days, and because in check-in they go, when's the last time you drank? And it had been a day or two, and they looked at me like, really? You get rolling here fucked up, bro? And I go, no. And so, because I passed the sniff test, I wasn't immediately on detox or anything, so I got visitation rights. And that Saturday morning, before my folks rolled up, Chewy, one of the techs, asked me if I go to church, and I go, kinda. He goes, you want to go to church with us on Sunday? I said, sure, man. Where are you going? He goes, oh, we go to Destiny with Pastor Obed, which was the same guy who talked to me and encouraged me to get my ass to church that Sunday before. And so that was one of those, okay, I hear you. And then visitation rolled around, and my dad had taken my car that was busted up to our mechanic, and Rick had always done our smogs and auto work and stuff, but he started talking to my dad. I guess he helps out with people in the community and helps out with younger kids. And, he ended up asking my father, hey, does your son read? I got a book that kind of changed my life that I'd like him to read. And, jumping back when I was slinging insurance, there was recommended reading. And one of the books that I didn't have that I wanted to read next, that I hadn't told anybody about, was Think and Grow Rich. And
Classic.
And so my dad goes, yeah, no, he reads. And so he whips out this book. He goes, he wanted you to read this. And it was Think and Grow Rich. And I'm thinking, like, what in the fuck? Like, pardon my language. So it was just too many in secular people think, too many coincidences where everything was just kind of jiving. And so that got me to sit down and shut up and really kind of go, okay, something bigger and better is watching over me here. And so, fortunately, getting into rehab, I couldn't tell you, other than that 90-day attempt to get sober, how to get sober. I'd never tried. Yeah. We could all tell everybody 8 different ways to get loaded from Sunday, but like, as far as trying to put together some clean sober time, not a chance. So fortunately, I sat down, I shut up. I listened to the old timers. I smashed the ego and was open to suggestions, and got a sponsor, started working the steps, started getting commitments, and finding like a tribe, because that was pretty much one of the main reasons in which I got so deep and heavy into drinking and drugs, was to feel a part of something, to feel cool, to be accepted, to maybe get the girl, to have the friends, to what I perceived everybody was having this amazing time, and this is, you know, what needed to be done in order to do that. And so, so yeah, with my homies in AA, you know, we would go to all sorts of different retreats. We'd go to the river, we'd go to the desert, we'd go golf. We stayed busy because, you know, there's something that I've learned in these 8.5 years is that, you know, if you're sitting around idle, then it gives this crazy neighborhood up here too much time to start convincing me that maybe it's been long enough. Maybe I could drink like a normal person.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so you went all in right away. Did you have like any type of like relapses, or
No, I've never had to change my sobriety date.
Let's go, bro. That's
God,
amazing.
Awesome.
Wow, that's the second guest we've had on that has done that, because that is not my story. Like
My buddy Mike too, the
Yeah.
comedian, right? My college
wow.
roommate. So
I feel like
wanna,
you got the godsend right when you needed it, and you went and did what he was calling you to do.
Right. And that's something too that I've picked up, you know, over these years is that, you know, seeing people coming in and out, in and out. What I feel is the common denominator is those that actually have a connection with their higher power. That's got to be something a little bit more than a doorknob or like a coffee mug, you know?
Yeah.
But that's a great place to start for anybody who's new and just hates God, because I get it. But the more you can rely and trust and know that your higher power, and my higher power is God, but whoever your higher power is, that it's all working out for your good, that his will's being done whether you like it or not. So just get into acceptance and ride it out, because, you know, the breakthrough and the blessing on the other side of the adversity and the growth that you're experiencing is greater than you could even imagine. But those that don't, they just tend to be these bitter, kind of white knuckling people in recovery that are just dry as a bone.
Yeah.
You know, and the people that have a solid connection with a higher power tend to just, you know, always have a smile, always have some joy, always bringing laughter to the rooms and to those that they encounter.
Amen.
Yeah.
I want to unpack a few things he said there, right? Because I agree with him wholeheartedly, and that was my recovery. And you always hear this like, "Hey, you're the sum of the 5 people you hang around." I don't believe that. I believe you're the sum of who you compare yourself to, and those might be the people you hang around with, right? But
Sure.
you have to have someone that you look up to. You have to have someone that's done what you're trying to do, and you know they've got there, and they're willing to help you, or they're willing to lead by example, right? And that's who I had to compare myself with, right? And when I went into NA, you know, honestly, most of their stories were way worse than mine. They were at darker places than even I was, and I tried to take my life, right? So, I mean, there was just some of the stories were horrible, right? And I also compared myself to those people because I'm like, I do not want to get that low again, right?
Right.
I had a moment of weakness one time in my life, and I don't ever want to get that low again. And a lot of the people in the program were at that point. So I believe you are the sum of who you compare yourself to, right? And you need to find good people to compare yourself to. And then that comes back. We've been talking about this for 41 weeks now. You know, for me, it was the 4 F's I needed to figure out and adapt to. And there was the addict Chad, and then there was clean Chad, right? And clean Chad needed to figure out his 4 F's. And my 4 F's were first, my faith, right? God saved me the night I tried to take my life, and I've told the story on here a bunch of times. I don't need to repeat it, but it was just like you, Kyle. It was total intervention, right? Total God, him putting Kristen in my life, totally him. You know, that's a God thing. So my faith had to get stronger, right? And that, you said, the higher power. Cool. Then it was exactly what you found in your AA, right? And some of it was people in my NA. A lot of it was just friends that I needed to be vulnerable and honest with, who they knew that I was using and partying. They didn't know to what extent, right?
Yeah.
I hit it very well because I was highly functioning. You would never know on how empty it was on the inside and how broken I was because I put on a great exterior, right? And that was the second thing. I needed to find the fellowship again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I needed to, for me, it was the fitness. I had to fricking start working out and I had to fill that empty space that I was using to go out and party and chase women or, get high. I needed to fill that with positive things, right? And that was my fitness. And then the last thing is, and I'd love for you to share how you've been able to do this. I needed to figure out how to have fun again without the drugs involved.
Yeah.
So I needed to be able to go to the same places because I couldn't completely avoid them, right? And not have to have those impulses or be able to fight the way through the impulses. I almost had to reintroduce my friends and the fun again and know that I wouldn't use this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
How have you been able to do that?
So I did kind of what most, I don't know if most all of us do, but it's certainly something that I've heard, I've witnessed, I've seen. But when so I got sober basically the month of June. I got out of rehab after 30 days. So I ended up doing 4th of July in rehab, which was beneficial because in my first year, it's those milestone holidays that are always tough. That my entire persona of it involves just getting obliterated. And so figuring out how to navigate through those. And so fortunately with 4th of July, I was in rehab and I was at the end of it and I wasn't going to do anything to screw it up. And so, but it was called, what did they call it? It's called Desert Trip. It was kind of like Coachella, but it was like 6 mega old school bands like the Stones, the Who, Pink Floyd, Paul McCartney, Bob Dylan, they were playing. And so we ended up getting tickets. And I'll never forget, it was just as Pink Floyd was kind of setting up. And, my mom used to smoke some weed. She's recently quit, but, it was kind of windy and she's like trying to hit the pipe. And I'm like, I grab it. I go, you need to cover it like this, tweak it. And it was that moment where I was like, oh shit. And so I text kind of my ride or die in sobriety, Amanda. I go, hey, I'm basically a raging drunk. Like I can smoke a little weed, right? And she goes, fuck no, man. Like nothing, no mind altering, nothing. You can't even crush like Robitussin. And I'm going, okay, fine, whatever. So that was kind of one of the first little eye openers on that. But, for me, it was, I'm a beverage guy, and maybe that's why I drank so much beers. But we were talking about how we don't have a lot of margin in our life, how we're like all in on whatever. Like bubbles, I'll probably drink like 8 of these motherfuckers a day. Like coffee, I'll brew a pot of coffee and I'll drink the whole thing. Not that I need the whole thing, but like it's still there. So like let's keep going.
Right.
The way that I would drink and do drugs was like somebody was going to give me an award at the end. Like, way to go, man. You did the most.
Yeah.
So that's kind of still my life, So for me, getting into these, like having
You're just filling
fun,
it with safer things.
right.
I'm the same with the coffee.
Right. And like I ended up going to a buddy's wedding. And normally I like getting tossed at weddings, but instead I brought my own cooler. It was filled with bubbles. I had 2 bottles of Martinelli's where I like soaked them and took the labels off. And so I was out on the dance floor with a whole bottle of sparkling apple cider, just crushing it. And like, if you drink a whole bottle of that, it's almost like doing a gram of Coke. There's so much sugar in that shit. It's like,
so hopped up on sugar.
So that freaked people out. And they're like, no. And then I'd have them have a sip and they're like, wow, this is delicious. So
you figured out how to have fun again in the situations that you would have turned to alcohol and cocaine and other drugs. You figured out how to reintroduce the fun.
Right.
And that's the problem. Like Drago and I have talked about this again, and chime in here, Dragos. You think when you're using and you think when you're drinking, like you're the life of the party. You're not.
No, they hate you.
They hate
Yeah.
you.
You know, it's just like you don't make sense. And as you start going to these social events and you're staying sober and you're watching everybody just slowly fall off the edge, you know, for me, it's like I can only tolerate it so much.
Yeah.
Once people get to a certain drunk, I'm like, I'm out of here, dude.
Well, and I see it, and I'm like, I know I was worse than that. So, like,
Yeah.
gosh, damn, like, how bad did I look, right?
Right. Right. So, you know, for me, it's going into those situations and having a game plan. Like if I'm going to a bar, I'm going to get a club soda with a lime and I'm just going to sip on that. And it almost looks like you're drinking vodka soda.
So you can go back to the bars again, right?
I can. I do, but not often.
Yeah.
You know, it's normally if you know somebody's having like a wedding get together or family or friends or somebody's in town. But no, I don't literally go to a bar every weekend to just kind of be in the environment. You know, my life's gotten very tame, you know, like for me just
That's good, bro.
sitting Netflix and chilling and eating some
Yeah.
food is like money, you
And
know.
now you
going to
just bought
bed
a
at
new
11.
house.
Yeah. And you know, the promises of this program have come true. I married a woman who I met in the rooms a little over a year ago. We dated for 3. Before that, I wanted to make sure I wasn't rushing into anything like we drunk still.
Yeah.
And it's been beautiful. You know, I inherited two children that she's had prior, and life's just been good. And yeah, as you just said, we finally just closed on our first home Thursday. So
Yeah.
let's go, man.
Let's go, bro.
But
Jeff
yeah,
Dragovich for your mortgage needs. Way to go,
yeah, hit up my boy.
Hit up your guy. That's awesome. Kyle, man, just you're so relatable. Your story is just incredible. And it was truly wreckage, and you know that could have been your life. I had a friend just lost his life in the car with his kids, T-boned, you know, not
Oh,
drinking, not anything.
Yeah.
He's about as straight arrow as you can,
Like
but
that.
literally that fast, right?
Yeah.
And it obviously is much easier when you're drinking and you're using. And I just want everybody to hear that Kyle is a normal guy that struggled. Jeff is a normal guy who struggled. Chad is a normal guy who struggled. And we all struggle in some way, shape, or form, right? But there is so much to live for once you figure out how to get past your struggles. And you know, my struggle was cocaine. Jeff's was opioids. Kyle's was alcohol. We all have different struggles, right? And once you find out first, you have to be willing to get help. You got to be
yeah.
willing. You got to be willing to change. And I'm reading the Bible chronologically now, Kyle, like the events that they happen. So I'm still in the Old Testament. And man, he is a mean and angry God if you do not do what he wants. Now,
Yeah.
I'm a Christian and I believe Jesus came as a softer side of God, but man, there is just gnarly things that happen when you don't obey. But the thing that you said that struck me, and it's so freaking true. And I think already I'm in Exodus, so not that far. I'm like 40 days in, right? Everything, all the lessons in there are stop pride, stop ego, surrender, stop ego, stop pride, right? Your ego is not your what, Drago?
Your ego's not your amigo, baby.
And it's
No
all
way,
it
man.
is. Ask for help. Tell people you're struggling. Call Jeff, DM Chad, look up Kyle, friend him. We're all willing to help, right? It
Absolutely.
is your pride and your ego getting in the way of a great life. And I believe God put all of us here, even me at my lowest point, to do great things. I believe I am here to do great things and to change people's lives and to help his children. Right? That's what I believe I was put here for. I know Kyle was the same. I know frickin' Drago was, right? He was destined and put here to be great. And the only path there is to surrender, check your ego, and ask for help from people that you can relate to. It might not be us, but find someone that it is. So, final thoughts, Drago.
Well, I want to hear what Kyle, we asked you a question at the beginning of the episode. If you
Oh,
were
yeah,
to change it, would you today, right here, sitting in your new house, would you change your story at all?
No, it's one of those things where when you get sober and finally figure it out and you start, reaping the benefits and the blessings of like not numbing yourself and being a total degenerate. Like you look back and you see all the years and things that you squandered. And, all of those events were necessary in order for me to find that bottom and finally put down the shovel and quit digging to step into what God had planned for me. So, hindsight is 2020, and it's like, yeah, would I have like not gone to college and gone to trade schools and been like an electrician and owned my own company now and all of that? Sure. But, I got to experience a lot of life and I got to burn a lot of life down. And then, like a phoenix from the ashes, you know what I mean? God raised me up and he's blessed me with a life. And I think we all can agree that we never thought we deserved.
He said exactly he said exactly what my buddy Brody said. You hear it?
Yep.
Hey, your rock bottom is when you stop digging.
Finally stop digging. Something too that I think is super important is, a lot of people, start trying to like do sobriety and it's not for themselves. They're trying to get sober for their kids or for their parents or for their spouse or whatever it is. But unless you are willing to change, unless you physically and mentally and spiritually know you need to change, then most oftentimes it's in vain, because it's some ultimatum, your dog died, your mom died, where you finally say, fuck it. And you just get loaded again because you truly didn't want it for yourself. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, I mean, there's a couple other things on that. You know what I mean? It's always like those people in rehab that are like, I gotta go. It's my cousin's birthday. It's like, your cousin's gonna have another birthday, dude. You need to focus on your life right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, the truth is you don't change. They're not changing their identity. You have to change your identity to, hey, I'm not drinking now, to I'm not drinking today.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not a drinker. Right. And that's when you start to rewire your brain. It takes about 90 days. You can truly make any change you want in your life.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, Kyle, thanks for coming on, bro. I really appreciate you. Yeah. I love you lots. You have a great story, dude. I'm sure you're going to help a lot of people here today that were watching this. Listen, if you're watching this, I say this every episode, like, we do not do this because we're trying to get famous on social media. We do this because this fills our cup. So if you're thinking about getting sober, you want somebody to talk to, you need a hug. Like, me and Chad put our personal mobiles in the comment section. Every episode, we are always available. I honestly would much rather you call me at 3:00 in the morning for me to talk to you than have to go to your funeral. So we do this. We have the resources. We're always available. Kyle, again, thank you for coming on, bro. I appreciate you. Your story is super wild. Chad, love you, man.
Love you back. Please share, get the message out. DM us if you need help or know someone that needs help. Call us, text us. If you want to talk to Kyle, we'll get you in touch with him. I know he'd be happy to help.
Absolutely.
And, just God bless you, Kyle. Your story's amazing. You gained a new friend today and always here to help you, brother.
Awesome. Appreciate you, fellas.
Later.